This video is lesson 21 of the Hands-On Equations learning system. And in this lesson, we're going to put everything that you've learned so far together. So you're going to solve equations that involve red and green cubes and blue and white pawns. At the top of the screen is our first example. We have 2 stars plus a positive 3 equals a negative 6 and an x. So there's our setup. So my goal in solving any of these equations is to get either the stars or the x's all on one side and the numbers all on another side, because that will give me the value of either the star or the x. And once I know the value of one of them, I know the other one is just the opposite. Because I see fewer of the pawns on the right-hand side, I'm going to try to get rid of this x. And be careful, you might be inclined to say, well, there's a zero pair right here. But remember that a zero pair has to be on the same side of the equation. These are on opposite sides of the balance, and we cannot take things from opposite sides of the balance unless they are exactly the same. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to add a star to both sides, because then I'll form a zero pair on the right-hand side. So when I added the same thing to both sides of the equation, I didn't change the value of the equation. I can now remove this zero pair right here without affecting the balance. And I'm going to shift these around so that I have my stars next to each other. And now I think I want to try to get this red cube off of this side. And ideally, I'd like to have a red cube over here to take it away with, but I don't have that. So I think I'm going to try to form a zero pair right here on this side of this equation. And to do that, I'm going to add a negative 3 to both sides. So that'll pair up with that one. That'll form a zero pair. And once I add them to both sides at the same time, I'm not changing the balance of my equation. I can now remove this zero pair. And now I have 3 stars equals negative 9. So I'm asking myself, what times 3 is negative 9? And that would be negative 3. So star is equal to negative 3. And therefore x is the opposite, positive 3. To do the check, I'm going to set everything back up to its original state. 2 star plus 3 equals negative 6 plus x. And I'm going to substitute the value of x and star. Star was negative 3. And x was positive 3. So let's add all these up. We have a negative 3 and a positive 3 right here. Those are going to cancel out. So I'm left with just negative 3 on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I can think of this negative 6 as negative 3 plus another negative 3. And then this negative 3 and this positive 3 right here will cancel each other out. So I'm left with negative 3 on this side. So my check, negative 3 on the left, negative 3 on the right, that is balanced. And here's one more example. Star minus 2 equals 6 plus x. So we have star, and we're trying to take away 2. This is a positive 2 because there's no parentheses, and this is an operation, and there would be a parentheses if this was a negative 2. So we're trying to take away a positive 2, which means we're going to have to add a zero pair and then take away the positive 2. And then on the right-hand side, we have a 6 and an x. Now you'll notice that once we get to equations that have stars and x's and then positive and negative integers, that there will be multiple strategies you can use that will all be effective in solving these equations. I'm going to show you a couple different strategies, but for this first one, I'm going to try to get x, or the star rather, by itself on the left-hand side and all the numbers on the right-hand side. So first, to get the star by itself on the left-hand side, I'm going to add a positive 2 to both sides, and that will form a zero pair right here, and I can then remove that zero pair. I'm going to combine these over here. I have a 6 plus 2. I can exchange that for an 8 if I wanted to. And now to get rid of the x on the right-hand side, I'm going to add a star to both sides, which now forms a zero pair of x and star on the right-hand side. That has no value, so I can remove it. So now we have 2 star equals 8. Star then must be 4, which makes x be negative 4. When you set up for your check, make sure you go back to the original state where I had added a zero pair, then removed the positive 2. and I had 6 plus x. I'm going to plug in a 4 for the star. And we have a positive 4 plus a negative 2. I can think of this positive 4 as 2 plus 2. And then this positive 2 and this negative 2 cancel out. So I'm left with just a positive 2. And on the right-hand side, I have 6 and then a negative 4. And I can think of this 6 as 4 plus 2. And the 4s, the positive 4 and the negative 4, cancel each other out. So I'm left with just 2. Therefore, my check is 2 equals 2. So I'm going to do this same problem again, but this time I'm going to use a different method for solving it. So just like I did before, I'm going to set it up the same way. Used a zero pair so I could remove a positive 2, 6 plus x. But let's say I didn't decide to get the star by itself first. Let's say I decided I wanted to get x on a side by itself. And let's say I did this. For example, I could add an x to both sides. That's a legal move. I put the same piece on both sides. And then I see a zero pair over here. So I can remove that zero pair that has no value. And now I don't have any more stars, so the x's are my only variable that's left. In order to get them by themselves, I need to somehow get rid of this positive 6. And to do that, I'm going to add a negative 6 to both sides, because that will form a zero pair on the right-hand side right here that then can be removed. And now we have 2x equals negative 8, which makes 1x be equal to negative 4, which makes star be positive 4. Because our setup was exactly the same, our check will still be 2 equals 2. But you notice that in the last example, we solved for star and got positive 4, and then we knew that x was the opposite. In this example, we solved for x and got negative 4 and knew that star must be the opposite. So when you're solving these equations that have x's, stars, red cubes, green cubes, positives, and negatives, you'll have to use all of your knowledge of legal moves to help you isolate your variables on one side of the equation and your numbers on the other side of the equation.